All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like over-capitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well-organized and well-funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. Alpha, good to see you on time, rocking like the man. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Doing good, baby.
All right. A lot to get to today, man. Yesterday was one of the more interesting days in the news in the last couple of days. We got a lot to talk about today, including some clip-intensive moments from yesterday's Birthright citizenship hearing. We've got aliens extending even further now. There's a conspiracy now that's evolving in that regard. What else we got, man? We got J6 updates, some explosive revelations in the J6 pipe bomber story. Oh, man, just a lot to get to. And, of course, Artemis II taking off yesterday. A lot to get to. You ready to get to it, man?
I'm ready. I don't know how happy you guys are going to be with me on some of my takes, but
we're definitely not going to be happy with Alpha. We'll get right into President Trump's speech last night so that my my war hawk over here can jab me a little bit, but we'll get into it, man. I think the friction is always good, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of it today. But let's go ahead and talk about MyPillow here.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, MyPillow mattresses and MyPillow mattress toppers, as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets. Regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard MyPillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
All right, MyPillow.com, promo code Badlands. And, just to be clear, Alpha, I hope you noticed that I said war hawk, not warmonger, because one is, somebody that just happens to have an opinion. The other is somebody that lusts for war. And I definitely don't think you're in that category. So I do want to pose a question, and I'm going to give you the opportunity, brother. I'm going to give you the opportunity to put this together for tonight on Sit Rep to kind of shove it in my face here. But last Thursday on Sit Rep, it got really, I wouldn't say heated, but there was a lot of friction on last night's show. And a lot of people in the chat were like freaking out, like Alpha and CannCon are fight. Me and Alpha got off the show and had like another 10-minute conversation and leave that conversation with, all right, brother, love you, man, I'm out. Like friction is good, guys. It is very good to have differing opinions, to push back on others' ideas and thoughts. And Alpha and I, there is no love lost between the two of us. It takes a lot more to put a wedge in the brotherhood that we have as Marines.
It absolutely takes a lot more than that. No, we actually, I think it was longer than 10 minutes. Like we talked for quite a while after the show on Thursday. We argued for quite a while after the show, but it literally ended with that. All right, brother, I'll catch you later. Love you.
Yeah, exactly. That's literally. So here's the question. And again, I don't want to put you on the spot, so I'll let you, answer unless you come up with something before you have something. But on Thursday's show, you had said that President Trump said that hydroxychloroquine was the vaccine. And he said he was vaccinated, and he said hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin is what he meant by vaccinated.
No.
Rephrase that then.
Yeah. He said that he was vaccinated. He took the vaccine.
Right.
Everybody was inquiring which one he took. He never said, hey, I took Moderna. Months later, he ended up, I think, saying that he took one. But in the immediate time frame after he took it, the only thing he came out and said that he had taken was the protocol from what we now know is it was Dr. Zelenko that gave it to him, which was hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and something else. So it was 3 things.
Okay. I think it was zinc. And that's because it's the kind of like inhibitor that allows those things to penetrate the cells. Okay, so I could be wrong. I'll go back and review it, but I could have sworn, and because the chat was like, I read the chat after the show, and they're all like, Alpha's right, and I'm like, actually, he's not. But I'll double check. So we'll hash that out. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, because that's what led us into the conversation of, because this is what we were saying at the time, is that was the vaccine protocol that he took. And the reason we were saying that was because of the definition that they had for vaccine at that time, and what that protocol that Zelenko gave him, it covered that definition. And then it wasn't very long after that they came in and they actually changed the definition of the vaccine. That's where like these people are changing definitions to fit their freaking propaganda. And that was that whole conversation right there.
All right. So we will definitely rehash that tonight. Again, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I wanted to give you fair warning, and maybe somebody in the chat will have that answer to that, although could be wrong. Smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. Like I said, we've got a lot to get to today. Might be a little frictional, but that's okay. That's okay. The big story, I think maybe we all can agree on this. But Artemis II taking off yesterday was pretty badass to watch that from here. Now, it was very cloudy down here in South Florida, so I did not get to see it. Usually we can see, like, I can remember watching the old NASA missions back in the late 90s. I remember watching those and being able to see them from down here, especially at night. Could not see anything because of the clouds, but pretty cool moment here.
And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7. RS-25 engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Good roll pitch. Roger, roll pitch.
Houston now controlling the flight of integrity on the Artemis II mission around the moon.
Integrity, AMT high. AMT high.
On time passing 30 seconds into the flights. Integrity passing the over.
All right, some pretty badass stuff right there. They're on a 10-day mission. They're going to loop around the Earth a couple times to gather up, speed and twice. Yeah, well, that's what a couple means, right? Gonna loop around the Earth, and then they'll take off towards the moon. They're gonna go around the moon and then come back to Earth. The whole trip in total is projected to take 10 days, which means they will be landing sometime while we're in Nashville, Tennessee at Guard 11.
10 days. I found that interesting. Yeah, we're finally gonna go and circle the moon. Maybe land on it for the first time soon too. It's kind of interesting though with all the alien talk, and then we're going behind the moon, and y'all know what happens in movies when our astronauts go behind the moon, bro.
The dark side of the moon. We shall see.
They're gonna someone's body's gonna get snatched up, and they're gonna bring it back to Earth, man.
So the dark side of the moon theory is interesting. We said yesterday, Ash and I said, wouldn't it be hilarious? Well, it wouldn't be hilarious, but wouldn't it be crazy if, it's taking off and then just all of a sudden alien ship comes out of nowhere and just like, nope, you're not going there. Or you go around the dark side of the moon and never comes back around to the other side. That would be pretty nuts. But
now just to address some of the concerns in the chat, I have 2 friends that were actually present and 2, friends that are not friends with each other, that were there to witness the launch, and both confirm, yes, there was a launch and this thing did go up. Now, where it ends up going, we're going to rely on what they tell us, but I can confirm through 2 separate sources who are actual friends that this thing did launch. So.
Yes, I have a very good friend that lives in Cape Canaveral and confirmed that it did actually take place. Okay, I know there's a lot of people out there. You know what was really crazy, Alpha, is last night I had to go. It was my sister's birthday, and we were going down to the beach to go, have dinner down there. And as I'm coming over, it's it's probably like 7:15. It's still light out, sun's still up, ish, and I saw more chemtrails yesterday in the sky in Florida than I've seen in years. I mean, I'm talking like just now, granted, these might have been like actual, because it's a very humid day, rain clouds and everything else. So it might actually be, something else, but I've never seen them like this. It was so bad. I told my wife, like, take a picture of that. So I'll post that picture on X here after the show, but couldn't see a damn thing in terms of the cloud cover we had here. This kid right here probably had the best reaction of all, man.
Why do you want to be here? Why do you love space? Why do you love being a part of history?
We're going back to the freaking moon. That's why.
I could have sworn he dropped an F-bomb, but then I woke up this morning looking for the clip, and he's like, frickin'. And I could have sworn he said the F word.
I was pretty sure he did. I think someone has probably modified.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not crazy. This isn't a Mandela effect here. I swear he said, we're going back to the fucking moon, man.
Yeah, as a matter of fact here, because I do have it bookmarked. Give me 1 second.
D-Dale says, is that Josh? No, that is not Josh. Although I was watching, Josh was on with General Quast. I was thinking Colonel Towner was on with General Quast yesterday on Space Revolution while the launch was going on. So I was watching that in the background, and pretty cool stuff, man. It's always fun to hear General Quast talk about all the advanced technology that's going to be coming out here pretty soon. And hopefully he doesn't get McCasklined. We're going to get into that, man. Have you dug into that at all, Alpha? All these scientists that are missing now?
I haven't dug into it, but I've read the stuff that people have dug into it, and it is very quite interesting.
I did surface level on it this morning. I published an article that I was working on, and I'm going to have to go deeper on that because, yeah, it's pretty nuts what we're seeing with that. Did you find it?
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I got a lot of bookmarks.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. All right, while Alpha's doing that, let's go ahead and just talk about a sponsor real quick, because I got to know now, because I swear this morning I was like, no, he didn't say frickin'. He definitely dropped the F-bomb. So we'll get a soft disclosure ad in here, and then we'll get back to the show.
Every Easter, one brave bunny takes on a very important mission. Spreading Easter joy. And apparently dropping most of it. And sometimes there's goat-related complications. Skincare's so good even the goats might want it. Because Easter is really about the greatest victory ever. Hope, renewal, and a promise kept. And every soft disclosure purchase supports 6 small American businesses working together. Use code GRACE for 15% off. Soft disclosure. Good for your skin. And apparently approved by goats.
All right, softdisclosure.com, promo code Badlands. Why do we celebrate? Why is there an Easter bunny for as the symbol of the Hallmark holiday aspect of Easter, getting away from the religious, resurrection and everything? Why is an Easter bunny laying eggs when bunnies don't lay eggs?
Bro, you got to bring on Josh for the whole freaking symbolism and meaning behind that, the dates and all that. It's wild. But that's creep. That's the creepiest soft disclosure ad. I've taken screenshots because I was just like, no, I'm going to have some AI fun with this. So Here's the one. It's 11 seconds. And this is this is one of the ones that I saved right out of the gate when it came out. So let's take a listen to what did he really say.
Why do you want to be here? Why do you love space? Why do you love being a part of history?
We're going back to the fucking moon. That's why.
Okay, so he does say that. He does say that. All right, so we're censoring the poor kid, man. We're censoring the kid. All right. So I'm
kid is gonna, that's gonna be a GIF meme for the next 20 years.
Going back to the fucking moon, man.
Like he will be like at job interviews, and the dude's gonna be like, "Hey, you really the kid? You really the moon kid, man?" Yeah. All right, just say it for me one time. We're going back to the fucking moon, man. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. You didn't qualify for the job, but that was so badass.
That'll be right there with the Charlie bit my finger.
Yeah.
Ow, Charlie, that really hurt.
That's a classic, dude.
That is a classic. All right, so President Trump last night, 9 p.m., gave an address. It lasted about 28 minutes. It was almost 30 minutes. I'm going to say this. I got 2 clips I want to play from it. And it was very much, if you've been engaged in President Trump's Truth Socials, it was very much in line with that. In fact, I think he pretty much read one of the Truth Socials directly. But it also, if you look deeper into it, there's some concern that I had with it. But overall, there was 2 things that I was hoping, and one was extreme on this, the good side. One was extreme on the oh shit side. The one I was thinking was, we're pulling out of NATO. And I was like, let's go. But that didn't happen. The other was, we're sending ground troops into Iran. And I was like, shit. That also didn't happen. However, I think the ground troops in Iran, he might have made some, allusion to it potentially happening. Before we get into the clips, what was your take on it?
It was nothing new. If you've been following his truth, if you've been listening to his statements, if you've been listening to Rubio, if you've been listening to the press secretary or Hegseth, there was nothing there that he said that we weren't already aware of.
Yeah, to me, it felt like President Trump was saying last night, without saying it, if you're not following me on truth, you should be freaking following me on truth. Y'all motherfuckers ain't getting the message over there. So let me say it on a national platform where everybody's going to cover it and say the same things I've been saying on truth for the last 2 or 3 weeks. And now you guys might finally understand that I'm dead ass serious about this stuff.
I saw it as a couple things. One of the things that I saw it as is a lot of people, especially people that are trying to attack him and his administration, are saying that, he's lost control. He doesn't have the impact anymore. And he showed last night, I'll get mainstream media to shut down their shit to cover what I got to say. Like he flexed. He said, hey, this is who daddy is. He flexed on that. And then the other stuff we can get into after he says, but that one was, I saw that one. I was like, he flexed. He flexed that he's still in control of the mainstream media, that he'll still make them do what he wants.
I agree with that. Absolutely. So here's a couple of the clips from last night, excuse me.
I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force. The nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard that it would take months to get near the nuclear dust, and we have it under intense satellite surveillance and control. If we see them make a move, even a move for it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard again. We have all the cards, they have none.
All right, so he ends there with, we have all the cards, they have none. Now, this to me, Alpha, was the one thing that I thought could have been signal for future ground invasion. You know, we've got the Marines in the Tripoli over there. We've apparently, allegedly, reportedly, they're mobilizing the 82nd to start moving over in that area, reportedly. You know, there's been news reports that the Pentagon is talking about ground invasions. Again, I'm not a fan of it. Everything that he just outlined right there would be softening of a target to allow the safest possible, you know, egress routes for troops to get in there, to take the uranium, to seize whatever territory they need to seize, Karg Island, whatever the case might be. That was the only thing that was a little bit concerning to me. But at the same time, you could take it on its face that he's just saying, hey, the aerial assaults are working. You know, the missiles and all that is working. I'll give it to you on that.
Well, as far as like the ground assaults, he never said he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Massey, you know, his clown group very early on were the ones that made that conversation surface, because, well, you know, and the press secretary came out and said, listen, he didn't say he has, but it hasn't been taken off the table. And it's one of those things where we have said he's not going to do mass deployment of troops on the ground. That's our analysis and assessment. It remains my assessment. But and I shared this on my Monday night show last week on a post that I did last, I think it was May or June of last year, where I said it then, you know, special forces will be boots on the ground in that area. SOF.
They already are.
They are, of course. You know what I mean? That's, we just know that, and that's why I've always said, but you're not going to see a massive deployment of troops in that area. It's still not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I hope that you're right on that. I do understand, you know, if there does come, you know, the new regime that he's got in place, right? If there does come a time when we have, you know, some sort of a ceasefire agreement, and we can, you know, bring troops in to effectuate that changeover of the regimes, and you know, usher in a country that's going to be more friendly, not just to the United States, but Western democracies in general, which I do believe is the end game here, right? President Trump has alluded to the formula, the Venezuelan formula. Whoa, the Venezuelan formula, you get Maduro out, and immediately Delcy Rodriguez goes in there. We reopen the embassy. We're trading oil with them. You know, we're lifting sanctions. We're making the country relevant in the world again. If we're using the same formula in Iran, you have to assume that that's the end goal. And, you know, President Trump, he's got to know that going in and doing something. I mean, I saw yesterday gas prices down here in Florida are $4.25 a gallon now. You know, diesel is $5.85 a gallon. That's worse than I've ever seen. And I drove a diesel most of my life, so I was, you know, privy to all that stuff during the 2008 recessions, during, you know, some of the Afghan war and Iraq war stuff. I don't think I've seen it in Florida much higher than $5.85, maybe temporarily, but you have to assume that with the midterms coming up, he understands that there has to be a quick reversal of this. And I think the quickest way to reverse that would be to be able to lift sanctions from Iran and allow them to trade their oil on the global scale, on the global markets, which would drastically bring down the price of oil. You know, I was talking with a guy last night, and he's like, this oil thing's killing me. I need it to come down. And I said, dude, just watch. Give it like maybe a month or two, maybe 3 months, and I think you're going to see oil lower than it's ever been. But I'm not an economist.
No, I agree. And here's the thing. And, you know, I shared this on a post yesterday. If you're someone who believes in God, which I do, then you understand, or at least subscribe to the idea that there's a devil, there's a Satan, right? So some massive, you know, the ultimate leader of evil. Well, if we say, hey, I voted, and this is kind of directed at one of the PUSSYs that we have in the chat right now, is, you know, this is not what I voted for. Well, I would assume what you voted for is to take back our nation's sovereignty, to eliminate the deep state, to end child and human trafficking, right? We can go on and on and on in that list. And this is something that is being weaponized against not just the American people, but all humanity. And I mean, most would argue that it's been going on for at least a damn century, right? This infiltration to our government by Mossad, by the CCP, by the Muslim Brotherhood, by the, you know, big pharma, the military industrial complex. Like this is the level of evil and fraud. Like this deep state has perfected its ability to protect itself. But guys like White Knight and other clowns that are out there are like, but Trump should have destroyed them in his 15 months on his second presidency. That Trump was supposed to destroy all this stuff and it shouldn't have impacted my wallet. Trump should have destroyed the deep state, but he should have did it without combat operations or war. Trump should have did all this, and I never should have felt the inconvenience while all this was going on. These clowns literally want Trump to take on the most powerful and evil entity that exists on this planet, and they were really stupid enough to think that that was never going to happen without conflict, discomfort, and shit that's borderline, are we constitutional here or not? If that's your position that you took, don't be mad at Trump. Be mad at yourself for being retarded. You don't accomplish those goals without us having inconvenience. Gas is going to go up. Food's going to go up. There's going to be casualties. Things are going to get uncomfortable. That is the fact of the matter. And anybody that wants to sell something different, that's copium. That's hopium.
I agree. I mean, I'm not a fan of this, but I do understand, again, going back to what I've said all along, I'm not at all a fan of this, but if President Trump is doing it, given his track record, I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt. And thus far, you know, and he highlighted this again last night, the 13 service members that have been killed. That is an extremely low number. Like, you know, and both of us are combat vets. You know, we've all lost brothers and sisters over there, you know, in these fights. And so, you know, don't take this as insensitive, but 13 is a very low number for, you know, what we were told Iran represents. But
if you look at the combination of everything he's done between Venezuela, the Houthis, Iran, the second round that's going on. Oh, and I get what people are saying. One life is too much. I get that. I understand. I agree with Ken on that. But in the perspective of combat, with everything that's going on, 100 would be a low number right now.
Yeah.
The fact that we're at 13 in of itself is a damn miracle.
And considering 6 of them were an accident that we still don't know the details of it, but it was an accident between, you know, refuelers, tankers. That doesn't happen very often. I mean, for all we know, that could have just been, you know, negligence in you know, air traffic control or whatnot. So the thing that got me about and another aspect of this that people aren't considering is how much this is exposing the U.S.-Israeli relationship. And we talk about this all the time. And this is something that's becoming more and more mainstream amongst even conservatives. It used to be a Democrat talking point. Now it's becoming mainstream even amongst, you know, the conservatives. I said earlier in the week, I got a DM from somebody, I'm not going to say, but this is an account with millions of followers, you know, talking about the Iranian ground invasion, saying that it's a horrible idea for President Trump to do this. And this is a staunch Zionist aligned individual. And I'm thinking to myself, why is this person now going on the record? And it's not like they said this to me uniquely. They were getting me to share something, asking me if I would share something. Why is this person now, and I did not share it because I don't believe in this, but why is this person now saying we should not send in ground troops? This would be kind of the wet dream of the Israeli lobby for the United States to do all the fighting and take over their biggest, threat in the region. Again, I think that a lot of it has to do with creating a boogeyman, somebody that can perpetuate the military industrial complex and always be that, that person. Well, Iran, if Iran's gone, you no longer have the Iran to continue, building up the military the way that they do and using the weaponry that they do. But this came out earlier this week from I think this is JFeed, Jerusalem Feed. Israel rules out ground troops in any U.S. operation in Iran. Media reports saying that Israel sets a firm red line regarding a potential U.S. ground invasion of Iran. Reports confirm the IDF will provide air and intel support, but will not commit boots on the ground, leaving any land mission to American forces alone. One of the quickest ways to sour the American populace on the U.S.-Israel relationship would be for us to send troops in and Israel be like, no, I'm not doing it. Because, going back to that SITREP episode, I asked, name the top 3 things Israel has done for the United States to be dubbed our greatest ally? And we couldn't get an answer, right? This would be a continuation of that. We never saw Israeli boots on the ground in any of the GWAT wars that we fought in. Never saw Israeli troops. We have, this here in Iran. So I'll land that there, but a lot's being exposed right now.
My comment to that is, we keep saying that Bibi and Israel wants World War III, nuclear war, to facilitate the Greater Israel Project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one that completely subscribes to the idea that Mossad is out there trying to start wars, although I also agree that it's not Mossad by themselves, and it's not Israel by itself. So when Bibi comes out, makes a statement. So there's 2 statements he's made. 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, 3 days ago, he came out and he said, Iran's no longer a threat. And now he comes out and they got them, it's being reported that he's saying no ground troops. So either April Fools, right, for the weekend from Bibi, or good. These are indicators of mission accomplished. But I think a lot of people don't want to grab onto that idea either, because then it's like, oh, I guess we're wrong. How do we sell the narrative that, Bibi wants an endless war and that he controls Trump? But his formal rhetoric that's out there is, hey, they're no longer a threat. We're not putting troops out there. That destroys the extremist ideology that, hey, Trump's controlled by Israel and a puppet, which I do have a video, if you don't mind me sharing. It's about 2 minutes, a little less. It's not even 2 minutes. It's 47 seconds. Imagine that.
Go ahead, pull it up.
That shows that Trump has had this mindset and objective of how he would handle Iran for over 25 years.
Oh, I know that.
And so, I know. I'm not saying you, but I'm saying there's a large portion of people that don't recognize this. So this video is, like I said, it's more than 2 decades. I think it might even more than 3 decades old. But take a listen to this.
But as far as Trump is concerned, our allies are only part of the problem. The real culprit is Iran.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean we
in,
take their oil?
You go in. You're
How
gonna have
do
a
we
war,
go
Barbara.
in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You're going to have a war, and it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep it, and get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
The dude has not shifted from his position. What he said, what he says now, peace through strength. He goes, you're going to have a war because y'all don't want to go in there and kick some people in the mouth. And that's what he's saying. Listen, we got to go kick some people in the mouth. We'll kick some people in the mouth. It's, and we've had this conversation. We could probably save it for SITREP. I have never, ever have I been anti-war. If I was anti-war, I wouldn't have joined the military. I am anti-fake wars. I'm anti-war. That's for the establishment, for the central bankers, for the military-industrial complex. I'm against that. But I know that there's a real evil that exists. And if we come to a position where the only way to deal with that threat is war, then it is. Because I also believe that, again, I believe in God, so I believe in the devil. There's some evil that exists on this planet that you cannot fix with policy. You cannot fix with tariffs. You cannot fix by weaponizing an economy. There's some evil that the only way you can deal with it is to get good men that are willing to be violent.
This will be for sit rep, but this is where I agree with you, but I disagree that this is one of those situations. I also am not a fan of war, even as a vet. I am a fan of defending our nation, and I don't think we've defended our nation in a very, very, very long time.
I hear what you're saying, but for me, that aligns with the people that, they want to wait for a cop to get hurt before he responds. And
the cop also can't run into the house and just start killing everybody just because he thinks that there's a possibility that they're going to hurt him.
When a cop knows, like I said, there are times when you can. And
okay.
and
let's save that for tonight. Go ahead.
For instance, if I'm a cop and I'm driving down the street and someone's in their house, I'm in public, they're in private. There's a reasonable expectation to privacy, and the Fourth Amendment prevents me from going inside their house. But if I start to hear yelling and screaming from inside that house, now I get to stop my car and I get to start investigating. If I start to hear indications of, assault or someone being, stabbed or shot, I can kick down that door and I don't need a search warrant. So, but the point I'm trying to make is America doesn't have to wait to get hit before we do something. This is the whole reason. Now, granted, these things have been exploited and taken advantage of by the same evil, but there's a reason we were supposed to have intelligence agencies, right? And now you get this fake intel that's out there to generate wars, which again, to me, it comes down to the ultimate. All these arguments we have come down to one question for me. Do you trust President Trump? Because I see a lot of people, and I think it's a retarded take, and I know you and some of my other friends have this take. Oh, so now we trust the FBI? So now we trust the government? Yes, there's parts of it we do. Now, if you're just going to always have the concept of, no, I can't trust the director of the FBI, no, I can't trust President Trump, and no, I can't trust the Attorney General, then the only remedy to your mindset is a revolution. If we elected President Trump, that's because we trust President Trump. And if President Trump's going to appoint people to positions and we trust that he's doing it for the right reasons, whether it's because he feels that these are the right people for the job, or whether it's because he wants to put these people in the spotlight so that they get exposed, we trust President Trump. Now, there's some people that say they do, but their actions and the other phrases they say, I would say, no, you don't trust them.
All right. So we'll land that. We'll definitely talk more about this. And I do have more on this segment. However, we do have some breaking news, and I'm trying to, the decision from the appellate court in Tina Peters' case has been released. And I have the opinion. It's 78 pages. So I'm putting it in ChatGPT and I'm asking it to give me a summary. So take this with a grain of salt, but this is what we are told, or this is what the summary of the decision is. The Colorado Court of Appeals held that Tina Peters' convictions largely stand, rejecting her arguments that a presidential pardon and supremacy clause immunity shielded her from state prosecution. The court ruled that the president's pardon power applies only to federal offenses, not state crimes, and that supremacy clause immunity does not extend to individuals who are not federal officers or agents. After addressing and dismissing her other appellate claims, the court affirmed her convictions for multiple offenses related to election system access and misrepresentation to officials. However, it reversed her sentence, finding that the trial court improperly considered her protected speech in sentencing and remanded the case for resentencing consistent with the First Amendment. So she is going to be resentenced, and from what I understand, it is still going to be with Judge Matthew Barrett, the first judge that we watched the most disgusting sentencing remarks that I've ever heard, calling her a charlatan and everything else, peddling snake oil, invoking arguments that she was not permitted to, like as matters of fact, that she was not permitted to argue as part of her defense. So she lost on all of her appeals. However, she is going to be resentenced. And given what we just saw, there was another very parallel case where another politician was charged with the same crimes and she got probation. And so I think ultimately we will see a resentencing, and I think Tina Peters will be let go with, probably time served at this point, because she's been in prison for almost 2 years now. So there's some breaking news right there, guys. It is bullshit. I agree. I think that we'll get into that on why we vote on Friday. There's a lot to unpack in this. I have not read the decision. That was just my quick Chat GPT summary, 1-paragraph summary. Yeah. So before we get into the continuation of the Trump thing, let's go ahead and hit a sponsor real quick, and then we'll get back into the Trump, the conference from yesterday. Guys, a little
my apologies.
Little inside scoop that many creators are talking about behind the scenes. It's actually one of the reasons that we use Rumble, besides the incredible free speech platform they've built. They made a way to super chat creators so we get paid immediately and without any fees. YouTube and Twitch take up to 50% fees when you tip the creators you love. This method takes none. That's right. The platform takes 0 fees. We get to keep nearly 100% whatever you decide to donate to us. You can super chat with Bitcoin, Tether USD, or even Tether Gold stablecoins. The tip will show up directly in our Rumble chat, which we'll read at the end of the show. All you need to do is download the Rumble wallet on the App Store and send the tips to your favorite creators. You can go to wallet.rumble.com, or you can download the app directly from the App Store. What an amazing way to get rid of the middleman and help the creator economy. Shout out to Rumble for making this disruptive technology. All right, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I did have a video that's 1:54 seconds of Rubio that I wanted to play just to cover the war aspect of that. But like I said,
we're going to be really crunched for time.
I'll keep my rants short because the video is more important. I actually rather play the video than share any rants.
All right, good.
All right, let me switch these and bring this one up for you now.
Well, before you bring that up, let me just land this real quick because I was talking about the U.S.-Israeli sentiment, and President Trump said this yesterday.
Fans, frankly, evangelicals and Christians, just Christians, I think they like Israel more than Jewish people like Israel, if you want to know the truth. It's really true. I get so many coming up, but I don't know when that started. It did start not thousands of years ago, I can tell you. It started, but the love for Israel is great. You wouldn't
and the dude knows how to he's a word master, bro.
He is.
He is a word that guy's level of intelligence is just insanely unbelievable. So here we go.
Many Americans are asking, why did the United States have to attack Iran now? Well, let me explain. Iran wants to have nuclear weapons. Of that, there is zero doubt. If what they truly wanted, which is what they claim, is nuclear energy, well, they could have nuclear energy like all the other countries in the world have it. And that is you import the fuel and you build reactors above ground. That's not what Iran has done. They build their reactors and their facilities deep in mountains, away from the public glare. And they want to enrich that material. The same equipment that they could use to enrich material for energy, they could use to quickly enrich it to weapons grade. So it is clear that they've been offered every opportunity to have a nuclear program that allows them to have energy, not weapons. And every single time they have turned it down. But why the attack now? Well, what was Iran trying to do? Iran was trying to build a conventional shield, in essence, have so many missiles, have so many drones that no one could attack them. And they were well on their way. We were on the verge of an Iran that had so many missiles and so many drones that no one could do anything about their nuclear weapons program in the future. That was an intolerable risk. Under no circumstances can a country run by radical Shia clerics with an apocalyptic vision of the future ever possess nuclear weapons. And under no circumstances can they be allowed to hide and protect that program and their ambitions behind a shield of missiles and drones that no one can do anything about. This was our last best chance to eliminate that conventional threat, that conventional shield that they were trying to build. And the president made the right decision to wipe it out now. That is the goal of this operation, to destroy their conventional missiles and their drone program so they can't hide behind it and finally have to deal with the world seriously about never, ever having nuclear weapons.
Now, real quick on this, and shout out.
When was that posted?
Well, bring it back up on the screen real quick. Shout out to Danny Munt over there on YouTube, because I thought the same thing when I saw this. Are Rubio's ears extra large today? That dude's ears look huge.
Always been huge. He's always had massive ears.
I'm talking like they look massive. You can take it down now.
When was that posted?
That was, let me tell you right now.
Because that feels like
this was March 31st is when Ryan put it, and I want to say it was a day or two before that. So I wouldn't say the 29th or the 30th.
Interesting. We'll definitely play that again tonight on SIDREP. So one of the other speeches, we're not going to play it because we are short of time. It's basically just a rehash of the Trump Truth Social about telling all the other countries that rely on the Strait of Hormuz, either buy your stuff from America, buy your jet fuel, your oil from America, or go there and take it back yourself. This was an explicit shot, I believe, at the UK. And then we saw this yesterday, UK to host Strait of Hormuz summit this week. Britain will host a virtual meeting of 35 nations Thursday in a bid to ease the Strait of Hormuz crisis. Starmer said that his foreign secretary, Yvette Cooper, will bring together the nations behind last month's joint statement urging safe passage through the waterway after Iranian forces de facto closed the vital shipping route. Starmer said the meeting, quote, will assess all viable diplomatic and political measures that we can take to restore freedom of navigation, guarantee the safety of trapped ships and seafarers, and resume the movement of vital commodities. The UK will also convene military planners to examine how they can, quote, marshal our capabilities and make the strait accessible and safe after the fighting has stopped. But that's kind of ironic considering what the Telegraph is putting out. Now, keep in mind, Telegraph is most aligned with MI6, British intelligence, right? So it's no different than our own Mockingbird media controlled by the CIA. Trump interview, I am strongly considering pulling out of NATO. Now, I did see people in the chat saying Congress requires 2/3 vote in order for us to remove ourselves from NATO. That's debatable. They passed a law, but the constitutionality of that law is debatable and has never been resolved. But let's go ahead and jump into this. Trump has told the Telegraph he is strongly considering pulling the United States out of NATO after it failed to join the war in Iran. Trump was asked if he would reconsider the U.S.'s membership after the conflict. He said, oh, yes, I would say it's beyond reconsideration. I was never swayed by NATO. I always knew they were a paper tiger. And Putin knows that too, by the way, saying that NATO partners have been reluctant to help reopen the strait, through which 20% of the world's oil typically travels, and sending oil prices and gas prices spiraling while threatening a global recession. Now, here's the most fascinating part to me, Alpha, and I did not know this. Mr. Trump added, quote, beyond not being there, it was actually hard to believe, and I didn't do a big sale. I just said, hey, I didn't insist too much. I just think it should be automatic. We've been there automatically, including Ukraine. Ukraine wasn't our problem. It was a test, and we were there for them, and we would always be there for them. They weren't there for us. This is the crazy part. Singling out the UK, Trump said, quote, you don't have a Navy. You're too old, and had aircraft carriers that didn't work, referring to the British fleet of warships. Asked whether the prime minister would spend more on defense, Mr. Trump added, quote, I'm not going to tell him what to do. He can do whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. All Starmer wants is costly windmills that are driving your energy prices through the roof. Following the comments, Sir Keir Starmer reaffirmed his support for NATO, describing it as, quote, the single most effective military alliance the world has ever seen. Yet it took us 20 years to defeat Afghanistan as a coalition force. On Tuesday, the first Sea Lord, that's crazy rank there, the first Sea Lord admitted that the Royal Navy is not ready for war, making him the most senior serving military figure to warn of the perilous state of their armed forces. At the start of the conflict in Iran, 4 of Britain's 6 destroyers were out of service and under repair. The UK has been forced to borrow a warship from Germany to fulfill its NATO obligations in the Northern Atlantic. I did not know that. I did not know that 2/3 of Britain's Navy, their destroyers at least, are out of commission. And the destroyers, but behind, of course, the aircraft carriers, which you can't send them out there without the destroyers to escort them. So Trump was pointing out how ineffective NATO actually is. They are a paper tiger, and they have been a paper tiger. Man.
Well, and it's important to the demand, or I won't say demand, but the statements that Trump made where, hey, y'all come down here and protect the Strait of Hormuz because I'm not. He's making that statement knowing that they don't have the logistics to do it anyways. And that's important.
And if they don't have the logistics to do it, what the fuck are we doing?
That's what he's saying. All the entire world, you look at places like Dubai and London and all these beautiful structures and architecture, that's all been accomplished because they're not spending money on military and all that stuff, because it's us. It's all done off the backs of America, while our infrastructure's falling apart, while we still have vets that are homeless, while we have vets that we're not giving them proper, VA care, or, our schooling, has 30, 40, 50 kids per class with one teacher. All that's done because all these other countries that look beautiful, when you got all these dumbass clowns on social media, well, look at America compared to the rest of the world. Yeah, you're doing it on our dollar. You're doing it on our work. And the same clowns, and part of the statement I agree with, America needs to get out of all these countries. What all these problems are because you guys are in our countries, but you got no problem with the checks that are signed by America coming into your country. So just recognize that the exit strategy, that means our money comes with us. And that's what's going to change. And Trump's doing it because he has to win the court of public opinion to do these things. And what he's showing everybody, look, y'all have been getting just, you think you've just been getting taxed? No, you've been getting robbed. Let me show you what's going on.
Exactly. We've been spending almost $1 trillion or more, depending on, whether you consider DARPA money and some of the Black Ops money and all that. We've been spending, I think it's like $850 billion on the books. A lot of people speculate it could be $1 trillion to $1.2 trillion that the DOW gets. And all of that is going to defend these countries that don't even have fucking warships. Britain, what are you doing? 4 out of 6. There is no military strategy in which you would take 2/3 of your destroyers out of commission for repairs. You do it 2 at a time. You take out 1/3, maybe. You take 1/3 out. You got the other 4 still patrolling, still out there doing escorts, right? Because if you have 4 out of 6 out of commission, guess what else is out of commission? Your aircraft carriers, right? And the days of the British fleet, those days are long gone. They are a paper tiger. President Trump's exactly right. If we leave NATO, the entire European defense structure crumbles. It absolutely crumbles. And what does it do for us? How much of our defense budget is spent maintaining our bases over there to protect their asses, right? And how much of that is the defense now, our debt, interest on our debt is more than our defense budget. And that's because we continue to spend $1 trillion a year on defense. There's a lot of other stuff, Medicare, Medicaid, we can get into that, but we're dealing with that as well. JD Vance and the anti-fraud task force. Yeah, man. I was looking, and somebody in the chat had said, Congress passed a law that would require 2/3 vote. So I looked it up, just again, surface level. Yes, NATO is included in that issue. Congress passed a 2023 law saying that the president cannot withdraw the U.S. from the North Atlantic Treaty without either Senate approval or a 2/3 vote or an act of Congress. That said, the constitutional fight is not completely settled because the president may still claim unilateral foreign affairs authorities, and the courts have not definitively resolved every aspect of treaty withdrawal. So the practical answer is the laws say no, but the legality could still be contested if a president tried. So again, it's possible. And President Trump has been pretty bold in some of the claims he's taken before the court. So I'll land that there unless you have anything else further.
I agree.
All right, let's jump into this story. CNN trying to ruffle things up in the Trump administration. Trump has discussed ousting Attorney General Pam Bondi. I know this is going to just drive more of that wedge in MAGA right now because, in addition to everything else going on with the war and all that, this is another one of those big topics. You have all your, MAGA doomers and your MAGA whatevers on equal sides, fire Pam Bondi, and others are like, let her work. You're not going to see everything going on. But let's go ahead and read this. It says Trump has privately mused about firing Attorney General Pam Bondi and replacing her with EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Multiple sources familiar with the matter. Okay, take that with a grain of salt. Frustrated by the backlash and anger in the base over the administration's handling of the Epstein files, Trump has asked people about replacing Bondi, who faces a deposition later this month on Capitol Hill related to the Epstein files. He has also fumed that she hasn't investigated enough of his political opponents. Now, I would need to see some sourcing on that in order to take that with any credibility whatsoever. Bondi was with Trump Wednesday riding in his motorcade as he attended the Supreme Court arguments on birthright citizenship. First time ever, historic, that a president attended. Trump voiced confidence in a statement to CNN saying, quote, Attorney General Pam Bondi is a wonderful person. She's doing a good job. Zeldin is not seen as a final choice to replace Bondi if she is dismissed. Trump has mentioned other candidates, but Zeldin most often is most often the one person that's mentioned. Bondi has several strong allies within the administration, including Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. But again, a couple months ago, in remarks to a reporter for Vanity Fair, Wiles previously acknowledged that Bondi, quote unquote, completely whiffed in her handling of the Epstein files. More left-wing rhetoric to drive the wedge in the MAGA base. What's your thinks? What's your thoughts?
Hey, listen, the same people came out and said Tulsi Gabbard was going to get kicked, and she hasn't. As a matter of fact, Trump has continued to come out and says she's solid. She ain't got nothing to worry about.
I don't think Gabbard's going anywhere, bro.
And neither's Bondi, not now. And here's the thing, and like I said, I like Tulsi Gabbard. I like Kash Patel, but if they do get removed, and what?
I don't. The fact that they're throwing Zeldin out there, and Zeldin he's done a good job at EPA, right? When he first came out, there's the $20 billion that they were trying to claw back, and he was very vocal about that. And he said a lot of things that ignite the MAGA base and get people fired up and all that. But at the end of the day, I still don't think he's enough of a pit bull to do this. You know, this is where.
Let me ask you this. What has Pam Bondi done or not done at, what are we in now for her? April, so what, 13 months, 14 months into the administration? What has she done or not done that warrants her being removed from her position right now?
Yeah, so the only thing that really sticks out to me on Bondi, well, two things that stick out to me on Bondi is, one, we're not seeing the things that MAGA wants to see. And I personally totally understand how that works, right? Complicated investigations. These are not things that can be done overnight. If you shoot your shot too early, you ruin the whole thing, right? So I'm there on that. I'm letting that one go. The whole Bindergate thing was disgusting. That was utterly retarded. It exposed a lot of people, but at the same time, we're sitting here saying don't put things out in the public because you don't want to taint an investigation, and then you do something like that where it would literally taint an investigation. And not only that, the public perception is terrible. Other than that, I don't have a problem with Bondi. I still don't know if she's enough of a pit bull. There's a lot of, you could go and investigate some of the things she did here in Florida, and I don't know, man. I'm not fully there, but I'm also like, that's not the one I'm going to doom out over.
Yeah, and the thing is I would tell anybody, go look at the last homicide that happened where you live, and show me all the press briefings where the chief of police came out and told you what they're doing in the homicide investigation.
I agree. They don't do that.
This expectation that we're supposed to know what's going on is retarded.
I agree. I'm with you.
Now, granted, Bindergate was retarded too, and people can argue the different reasons of why. One thing that it did do was it exposed a lot of people that are considered grifters as grifters. And doing that at the front end, I think, serves a purpose. Just like CNN coming out with this information is the same information that came out with, Tulsi Gabbard's, going to get removed, which goes back to the last, 4 weeks of Tucker Carlson coming out saying all things, and none of these things ever happened. Now, all these people, Tucker Carlson's not a stupid guy. I'm not a fan of him right now, but I also recognize he's not stupid. And so when he comes out and commits himself to, hey, this is going to go down, that my sources tell me this, and those things are not happening, and we know that he actually has a history of being consistent with the speculation analysis that he does. This, again, what does it tell me? That there are leak operations in play by this administration. That's what's happening right now. And when I see that stuff, that's the stuff that gives me more confidence in what's going on. Because if you're continuing to do if you're continuing to do leak operations, that means you're looking for OPSEC. And if you're looking for OPSEC, that means you know what you're doing. You're dialed in.
I agree. That's why I don't doom out at all over Bondi. Like a lot of, people that will read that article in CNN. And that's one of the reasons I'm covering that, is to show you, whether that's a canary trap or not, whether that's, to seed a narrative. If CNN is seeding a narrative, the Zeldin aspect to it, again, I don't think Zeldin would be the best replacement for her if this story does pan out to be true, which, again, grain of salt. I'm with you on all of that, man. I'm with you 100%.
It goes Sidney Powell, baby. Yeah.
That would be fiery. I know you don't agree with this, but Matt Gaetz would be fire. And I would just want him to do that because of the pushback we saw against Matt Gaetz. I would want him in that position because they freaked the fuck out, man. The only person I think they might have freaked out more than Matt Gaetz was Ed Martin. And, either of those two would be acceptable. Sidney Powell would be fantastic.
You see Ed Martin's post last night?
No, which one?
It's just a solid gold square.
What was that supposed to mean? I didn't see it.
We'll save it for Sit Rep.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into this story. So I think it's published now. So I'll pull it up here. I had a preview up of it. Court documents. Former U.S. Capitol police officer turned CIA employee failed polygraph test regarding J6 pipe bomb. This one is really interesting, Alpha, because they immediately took that filing down. But thanks to internet sleuths, it was downloaded and backed up. So this story is, Brian Cole Jr., he was arrested and alleged as the alleged pipe bomber, the 30-year-old autist who lives in his basement and does like My Little Pony skits and like all sorts of other things. Very interesting individual. They found all the receipts, all the pipe bomb making material, everything in perfect condition. One of the things they said is that he wiped his phone like 900 times since January 6th, or since like the month before January 6th, December or something. What they forget to tell you is that like he wiped it like leading up to January 6th, like a day or two after January 6th, and then doesn't wipe it again for like 4 years, which is, I mean, if you think that, your phone is going to be used against you in some form or fashion because of a crime you committed, you wouldn't just wipe it, 5 days after and then not again for another 4 years. You would be constantly first you get rid of that phone, right? You would get a whole new device. But that's not what happened. So they use that as kind of like a shock and awe. Like he deleted his record 600 or 900 times or whatever the hell it was. It's kind of stupid. So all of this was to put off this former U.S. Capitol police officer who the Blaze came out and said they believe that she was the one that planted the bomb. There was an investigation opened up into her before Brian Cole. We found out the FBI surveilled her, questioned her, all sorts of other stuff. What we never knew is that they gave her a polygraph. That was never disclosed to us. And here's what it says, according to the filing for Brian Cole's attorney. Said this was based on, quote, according to discovery produced by the government in the case, the FBI, end quote, the FBI began investigating, questioning, and covertly surveilling Kirchhoff, quote, during the time it began investigating Mr. Cole. So it says in the filing, quote, he was asked two relevant questions. Number one, did you place those pipe bombs? And number two, did you place those pipe bombs that evening? Ms. Kirchhoff failed the polygraph test. The FBI polygraph examiner noted Kirchhoff's, quote, very controlled reaction to the news of her failing the polygraph and seemingly rehearsed responses to the examiner's questions. In addition to that, they subpoenaed. So if you remember, CBS,
you want to address this piece by piece, or you want to? So you guys are. I told you guys are not going to be a fan of mine. So
polygraphs aren't admissible. Okay, I got you.
One, you don't pass or fail a polygraph. So everybody needs to understand that there is no pass or fail on a polygraph.
It tells you you're being dishonest or
no, it doesn't.
It's not. What's the exact word?
It'll tell you inconclusive. It'll tell you acceptable. It'll tell it depends on what companies. But there's no polygraph by a professional company that gives the final determination that you failed or that you lied. There is none. They don't exist. Now you'll have agencies like my police officer agency that'll say, hey, yeah, we didn't accept them because we formed the opinion that he lied on the polygraph. Key word there. We formed the opinion that he lied on the polygraph. And that's because the polygraph provides an assessment. Hey, when we asked this list of base questions, this was the way the body react, heart rate, breathing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when we asked these questions, there was an inconsistency there. There's multiple reasons for that inconsistency. And like I said, I'm not a fan of this lady. She's Capitol Police. By no means am I a fan. But there's a lot of my friends, including some police officers, that are running. Everybody else, you and other people, I'm good with it. But some of my friends who are prior law enforcement, the shit they're saying, they're full of shit because they know what I know. And here's the thing. When the other thing is, this is being sold as this is the government's position. It is not. This is the defense's motion. And if, just like my attorneys, when they filed their motions, those motions are going to be very pro me. They're going to look at something that the government did, and we're going to go and we're going to write it in the context that we feel benefits me, because that's my job or their job, right? I'm the person that they're defending. If you go and you read any court document where there's things like this, you'll then see the prosecution side that addresses the same thing from a different context. So then are we going to go out and say, well, now this is the truth of what's going on? No, this is a defense's motion to help their client. And when they go out and say, well, hey, this is the siding that we're going to talk about here, put in why don't you attach the entire forensic analysis from that polygraph to it, because they want to extract the part that helps them. So here's the thing. Could she be in line? Absolutely. Do I think she went in there to tell the truth? Not a chance. But how many other questions did she show inconsistencies on? And what were those about? Here's the thing. Back to before we get into the next parts with Brian Cole, the cleaning of his phone. Well, if we're going to use the argument that he's autistic to create doubt, well, then there's the other parts of the argument that what happened, what's a common characteristics of people that are also autistic? They're OCD. It's not far-fetched to think that they would continue to wipe their phone. They also think beyond the way we think when it comes to things, where if I can, now that I was part of a crime, if I continue to wipe my phone, that's going to, because of the movies and books out there, that's going to look like an admission of guilt. So now I'll stop doing the wiping of my phone because I'm going to be smarter than them. There's all these arguments that could be made either or. But
I would push back on that. So he wipes his phone because he's autistic, and then he stops because he has a realization that could be perceived.
Not a realization, because these people are absolutely brilliant. They're
some of them are. I mean, yes,
some, but there's some, that their ability to function is pretty high. There's a lot of people that argue that one of the kids, some say both, but that one of the kids during Columbine was an autistic kid. And look at the level and sophistication of that planning, maps, pre-positioning of, explosive devices and all that. So when I get the argument people make, well, he's autistic. What's the possibility of that? But then I would say there's actually history to show other people who are autistic that were very strategic and showed a lot of forethought into their planning. And at the end of the day, he said he did it. Now, people can argue, was that statement
after 5 hours? Yeah, after 5 hours of interrogation.
But here's the thing: I've been in 5-hour interrogations.
You're not
sometimes. Well, no, I would argue that with some of these people, bro. But the point that I'm making is Hollywood has gotten people to think that we go in, we do an interrogation, and boom, they tell us the truth. That's very rarely the case. Legitimate interrogations do take hours, especially with the more sophisticated the crime. And we're talking January 6th, and we're talking explosives outside of, places where our congressmen in, those are going to be sophisticated. You're going to go in, you're going to talk to someone, you're going to take a break. You're going to go in, you're going to talk to someone, you're going to take a break. Interrogations, especially this magnitude, lasting hours, is very, very common. The only time interrogations are short is when somebody lawyers up, because now you just got to stop. But going for hours in an interview is not something that's uncommon. And I'm telling you from someone who's done it. It's just people don't like it because they don't want to trust cash. And that's what I'm saying. You could have Tyler Robinson come out right now and said, I did it and I did it alone. And people are going to say, no. It's like, what do you guys want? What people want is they want the answer that reflects their position. And what I'm saying is,
literally made my point for Sit Reps chat on Thursday night. Alpha's right. No, he's just right because you want him to be right.
No, I am.
No. I'm saying in regards to last Thursday, that's a contentious topic. There is no right or wrong. None of us have any of the intel to determine in that argument whether we're right or wrong. They're just saying you're right because they want to feel like you're right. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. The reason I was so reluctant is because I think to say something is because I know this is Alpha's thing. Are you saying integrigations or interrogations?
Interrogations.
Okay. I thought you were saying integrigations, and that was
maybe I could have been saying it then too, but
I was going to make
when I thought about it,
Venezuela
interrogations
and Valentine's Day. We like to jab Alpha.
But I mean, here's the thing. And one, I saw somebody posted, never talk to police. Yes, never
talk to the police.
Never talk to the police. No matter how much, even if they tell you you're not a suspect, never talk to the police until you have a lawyer. And then your lawyer is going to tell you never to talk to the police in 99.9% of the situations. But at the end of the day, do I think Brian Cole acted alone? My personal opinion, no. Do I think that he did what he did? Yeah. Do I think that what's her damn name again? The Capitol Police Officer chick? Kirchhoff. Do I think that she's innocent? No, I don't. Now, to what level of involvement? I don't know. But I do think that there was probably more there. Do I think the reason that they're highlighting those two questions and the analysis probably shows that there was an inconsistency there or something that was inconclusive is because there's probably is some level of involvement or maybe even knowledge of what was going on. Like she's being surveilled. She was being surveilled for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So just to go back, and for those that need the description, she was the next door neighbor to the person whose Metro card was scanned. This stuff was all kind of hashed out. Our friend Kyle was part of the surveillance team and got pulled off as soon as, he said, let's make contact and trying to interview this person. He was pulled off of that detail. The only thing that we're told that exonerate, I don't want to say exonerates because that implies that she was charged with something that clears her name is this
alibi.
Her alibi. There you go. Is this alleged video of puppies that she's playing with? Apparently, I guess she only has one dog, so puppies plural was interesting, but we've never seen that actual video. And so jumping into this, continuing on with with that motion, they've now subpoenaed several things, including the video of Miss Kirchhoff's dog taken at her home with her voice allegedly in the background, purportedly from the evening of January 5th, and shown to the FBI agents by her or Mr. Dickert, who's her boyfriend, in November of 2025, and any photo, video, or audio created on the same device on January 5th. Interesting. I guess you're getting that data. So for to see if it was manipulated, if you're asking for the actual video and then any other video or photo created on that day, I'm assuming that has something to do with to determine if it was edited or manipulated in some form or fashion.
Could be. But the other reason as well is if you're trying to, and judges are a little smart on this, but they will give you the benefit of the doubt. There's some stuff you just know the prosecution's not going to give it to you up until right before trial, because that's when the constitutional time frame comes in. So you'll put it in the motion knowing that the prosecution is going to argue against it. And you do that because, again, you want to win the court of public opinion, because then you can run to the newspaper and say, look, we're asking for this, and they're fighting against giving it to us. And it's that because most people don't understand, the chess game in these trials, don't understand that there's a reason they're not doing that yet. But it allows the defense to create doubt in the court of public opinion of, Well, yeah, why wouldn't you release that? Like, that's a reasonable expectation. So it could be the game playing that happens here as well.
Okay. Identify the phones on which the dog video was stored. Also, Ms. Kirchhoff's employment records from the CIA in her possession, her offer letter from the CIA, and her standard Form 86 questionnaire that she completed for the job at the CIA.
That's the biggest one that makes her suspect to me, by the way.
Yeah, the fact that she went to the CIA after.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. And that's why I think they want to see how she actually got onboarded with them. And, was it a legitimate hire? Was it a favor kind of thing? Yeah.
It's the CIA. That paperwork's not going to reveal anything.
Well, and then the counter argument to that is, oh, she's just a security guard at the CIA. Okay. Maybe.
And get it. And I agree with that position too, but it's still the CIA.
Right. Exactly. It's a little more prestigious than walking around inside the Capitol. Although the Capitol is pretty prestigious, but that's a dead end job, right? At Capitol, what are you going to work your way all up to the one position? The Yogananda Pittman or the Steve Sun chief position? No. But you go to the CIA, start as a security guard, work your way up, cut your teeth for a couple years, and who knows where you go from there. Ms. Kirchhoff's home camera records from January 5th through the 6th of 2021. I don't know if she'll have those because her preservation wasn't sent until 2025. So I doubt that she's going to have that. Communications between Ms. Kirchhoff and Mr. Dickett from January 5th through the 6th. Communications between Ms. Kirchhoff and family members with a 614 area code from January 1st through January 8th, 2021. That one's interesting. Getting family, correspondence between family. 614 is Columbus, Ohio. So it's almost like they kind of have a tip off that something's fishy there. I'm not sure. Communications between Ms. Kirchhoff and the government and Ms. Kirchhoff and Mr. Dickett from November 1st, 2025 through the present related to her polygraph on January 5th pipe bomb investigation and any photo and video purporting an alibi for her whereabouts on January 5th, 2021. And there's some other things in there as well. Now, here's the interesting thing, Alpha. Immediately following that docket being released, the government files a motion to hold Cole's attorneys in contempt for releasing protected information, saying that the government sought a protective order at the beginning of the case prohibiting the public dissemination of any discovery materials designated as quote unquote sensitive, quote, or the information contained therein, end quote, including unique identifying information and information that may jeopardize witness security and requiring a quote unquote prior agreement by the government or permission for the court before such material could be included. Today, defense counsel filed on the public docket a motion for early return of subpoenas that violated in egregious fashion both the letter of the protective order and the spirit of the court's admonition. Media figures who have for months been claiming that the defendant is a quote unquote patsy for the true pipe bomber, the individual publicly identified by defense counsel in their pleading, has already obtained and posted the filing and exhibits in full on social media. The interesting thing is that in that the government, and I saw this post in response to another post online, the government doesn't say whether or not the polygraph details are inaccurate, wrong, whatever the case.
They're not going to.
I know. But that's what people are saying. The government is made them pull that back because the polygraph stuff is not true. No, they pulled it back because apparently her name and address were listed in there, or her address more specifically. So I'll leave that there and hand it over to you.
Listen, I think everything should be made public, but that's not the way these things work. Again, we're in a different realm now, and what you're seeing is several people, including my friends, know, because we did the job. We know what the prosecution and law enforcement is going to say and not going to say. So that gives us the advantage to say, I'm going to go and make comments in this realm, knowing that their policy is not going to let them respond to that. Because remember, a fair trial is on both ends. Defense gets a fair trial, but the prosecution is supposed to get a fair trial as well. And that's where they're supposed to operate, even though we know a lot of them are corrupt. And what you're seeing right now, this goes back to the Tyler Robinson. There wasn't a match. And, me and you had this conversation, that's not evidence that he didn't do it, not even remotely. You got to have the complete forensic analysis on these things to make that determination. Because if you go and you do an analysis of a bullet, or fragmentation of a bullet, and there's not enough to come back and it says inconclusive, not a match, that's not saying, hey, we looked at the rifling and the particles of this, and we confirmed that it was not fired from this weapon. That's and see, this is not what's being reported. So these things are being reported in a strategic way to influence the court of public opinion. It's propaganda, regardless of whether it's my friends are a part of it. It's propaganda, and they know it is. When you go and you put something in a certain context to mislead people, that's propaganda. And so what we're seeing here is that same case. I saw someone in the chat, and I've been hearing this for a very long time. Charlie Kirk was not shot with a 30-06. And so I asked people, well, what's your evidence to that? Well, it's not possible in this. I said, look, if you ask me for my personal opinion, I would say the likelihood of a 30-06 direct wound to the neck, my opinion is not going to happen. But I'll tell everybody, go read.
Next to impossible.
Well, I wouldn't say next to impossible. I would just say unlikely. Well, this is what I tell you about. Do you know what MLK was shot with?
Allegedly shot with, like the one, that's one case that you're going to cite.
Well, it's a very big case. That was 30-06 to the jaw.
So we're told.
So
you know what JFK was shot with?
What's that?
The magic bullet. I mean, that's my argument here. Is you're talking about like why not invoke JFK in that argument? If you're going to say, well, MLK was shot in the jaw, went into his neck, came out his shoulder, or it was resting in his shoulder up here, why not just bring in the magic bullet as well? And JFK was shot through the head, it went through the driver, and it landed in pristine condition on the floor.
Well, the other thing with JFK is we're still arguing on the direction that he was shot from.
Oh, I agree. MLK is no different. MLK just didn't get the scrutiny that JFK got. The rifling on the round did not match the rifle. It was a 111 twist versus a 110 twist. I mean, there's all sorts of issues with the MLK shooting.
So what I'm saying is, if a lot of people on our side like to argue Occam's razor, and it seems like we only want to argue Occam's razor when it benefits us, and I don't operate that way, did MLK's not get scrutiny because it was just that obvious? Or did MLK's not get scrutiny because there was a grander conspiracy that was out there? Like at some point, it's either we're going to use the evidence that predates these conversations, or we're not. But if we're going to pick and choose the evidence, then that's when I say, what makes us any different from them? And so what I'm saying, and I still hold this position, is, do I think, and that's why I even started my speculation, a direct hit from a 30-06 round? No. I think it'd be pretty devastating from what I've seen in hunting videos. But again, that doesn't also account for soft tip. It doesn't also account for low recoil ammo. And these things that would absolutely change my opinion. But we don't know that evidence yet, right? Like it hasn't been released to us.
Let's unhash this. This will be a topic for sit rep for sure, because I want to really, me and Alpha are gonna end the show on sit rep hating each. I'm totally kidding. We're not gonna hate each other, but we will go at each other on this because Alpha has gone a long way from the initial takes here, and so we're gonna hash that out tonight, brother.
I'm
Dukes, man. Let's go.
I'm just saying, with regards to this document and Brian Cole and all that, it's a defense document that's positioning itself to make a case for its defendant. It's expected for people to come out and say, oh, see, she lied on the polygraph. I'm sorry. That is not a true statement.
Okay. Yeah. Well, she failed the polygraph. It didn't say she lied.
Didn't fail it.
I understand that. We have not seen the report. This is a motion.
But I still can guarantee you that the polygraph doesn't say she failed, because polygraphs don't provide that assessment.
Yeah, but so again, this is just a motion. You don't have to put your evidence in there. They haven't had a preliminary evidentiary hearing yet in this case. So none of this evidence has to be presented right now. They're just making claims in the motion for the judge to consider. And obviously they're going to try and make their claim a lot better. My point on this specific story is now we're finding out that she did take a polygraph, that the FBI examiner that gave the polygraph did believe that she was misleading. That's the term I was thinking of, misleading.
That's because that's part of it. That's what a polygraph does.
Right.
He comes in and even when you're telling the truth, they always come in and follow it up with a question.
Of course.
Are you sure you were being truthful in this response? You know, our machines are indicating that, you know, you were lying here, or you were being, you know, whatever case they're going to use, right? Misleading, whatever, right? And what's that supposed to do? It's supposed to generate emotions that they're recording.
Correct.
You know,
I understand that, but you know, going back, you know, this.
I'll land my point here, and then I'll give it to you to close it. Okay. Is there a court document now that everybody's using that says that she lied and failed the polygraph test?
No, they took it down.
But the court document exists.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a court document that exists that says Brian Cole admitted to doing this crime?
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go.
Of course, but he's also pled not guilty.
But he did tell the FBI that he did it.
Of course. I'm
so
not.
The FBI is presenting their case.
We also have been, I mean, there's threats of lawsuits against people that you and I both know, and these are public. They've been posted online and stuff. Threats of lawsuits for not retracting, you know, claims and accusations, and it's based on this dog video. This video, nobody's seen this video. I asked yesterday. I asked some of these people involved. I said, "Do you guys have a copy of this video? Have you ever seen this video?" Nobody's seen this video
because it's evidence.
So, it's not evidence. It's an alibi.
That's evidence.
And if you want to refute claims based on evidence, the gate analysis is evidence.
You don't have to. And like I said, it's procedural. But because law enforcement people forget, you also got to operate from the position of CYA, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go and you have someone, you determine that they're a suspect, right? And all of a sudden you're doing surveillance on them, you're doing all this stuff. And because this has happened, like, you know, if you're doing surveillance on someone, it's because you think that there's something there. And there's times where you're doing surveillance and then new information develops and you're just like, oh shit, they weren't even in the same city. And so you cut surveillance because, you know, there's no way that they were a part of it. So in this situation, if you go and you discovered information through search warrants or maybe it was consented and given, I don't know that shows somebody has an alibi, you don't then have to go and tell the public, hey, these people were proven innocent. Like I never went and did a homicide investigation where then I went and told the public, hey, these people were initially investigating, it wasn't them, they were innocent. No, you actually try to minimize their footprint in the report because you don't want to get sued for it. And so that's what I'm saying. All this stuff it's not inconsistent with the way regular, you know, large scale investigations happen. It's no different.
I mean, if you're gonna leak your alibi to CBS News and put that out there, you should include the video. That's all I'm saying.
I would agree. I'd love to see it. But here's the thing: that video is going to come out eventually.
Maybe.
And eventually, you know, the case will come to a conclusion, and then even after that, you know, there's a time frame. So eventually, this video is going to come out, and when it comes out, then people are going to say, "No, that's AI." The mob is never going to be satisfied.
That I can agree with.
Until people are vindicated for their position, they're never going to be satisfied, and that goes on both sides.
All right, let's move along. We'll jump into this story, the alien story. We'll go ahead and cue it up right here. I played this 3 days in a row now, dude. It's getting real. It's
crazy.
I know this story is nuts, man. And the newest addition to it is even crazier. Tim Burchett has joined the alien conspiracy. From the Gateway Pundit, I wrote this this morning. This country would come unglued. Representative Tim Burchett comments on recent alien claims amidst scientists missing or dead. Now, check this interview out. This is in response to the Matt Gaetz one. We played it yesterday where Matt Gaetz said there's hybrid races being created. He was briefed on hybrid alien human races being created. The senator from Australia, Senator Babbitt, came out and confirmed it, or said, I can't confirm or deny. You'd be surprised at who's real or who's part of this. And then, you know, allusions to April Fool's jokes all over the place. Well, now check this out from Tim Burchett.
I don't have the
Let me make this full screen. There we go.
tinfoil hat on just yet, Congressman, but I'm wondering, you know, kind of how you react to that, because you are connected. You're on the
So he just played the Matt Gaetz clip with Benny Johnson in context here.
UFO subcommittee. I mean, I'm just wondering what you make of that. Have you heard anything like that?
Well, I'm still a member of Congress, so I can't really comment too much on what Matt said. But I will say this.
Wait, seriously? Are you being serious, or is that
I'm being
tongue-in-cheek?
100% serious. Okay. I've been 100% serious. I've been briefed by just about every alphabet agency there is. And I'll just tell you this, if they would release the things that I've seen, you would stay up, you'd be up at night worrying about or thinking about this stuff. We just need to disclose it all. I'm sick of it. Well, I was briefed. I'll just tell you this. I was briefed last week on an issue, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago. And it would have set the earth off. This country would have come unglued, I think, if they would have heard all that I heard. They would demand answers. And we need to. But, you know, it's never going to get, unfortunately, it just keeps getting covered up. And the people that know are dying or disappearing, as the case may be.
Wow.
And for the record, I'm not suicidal and I don't take risks. So,
I'm glad you said that. I'm speechless, Congressman.
Well,
We will have you back.
You should be. And I told the president, release it all. And the problem is the people that are around the president don't know and the president doesn't know the questions to ask. A few of us are going to have to get with the president and tell him what he needs to ask and where he needs to look. I mean, you know, we're in meetings and they give addresses and tell locations of items, I'll just say. And the public has a right to know, dadgummit. It's your tax dollars.
Absolutely.
Let's get it out there.
You got my attention, Congressman. I appreciate you being as forthcoming as you have been tonight. And we look forward to having you back. Look, I know Donald Trump wants to disclose something. He hasn't done it yet, but I think he wants to be the president to do that.
Craziest statement of the year so far, in my opinion, bro.
So there's
outside of Matt's.
There's a couple things in there that were really interesting. So obviously, you know, if the people knew this, the world would come unglued. Like that was really interesting. But then when he talks about the missing or dead or missing people in the case, at whatever the case may be, he also put this out on X last week in response. And I saw Josh had shared this. That's where I got tipped off to this. The Sentinel Network put out, while fireballs fall through roofs in Germany, Ohio, and Houston, the Caltech scientist who tested whether we'd see them coming was shot dead on his porch, Carl Grillmeier. His killer's charges were dismissed 11 days earlier. The guy that killed him was found on his property in December with a rifle trespassing on this guy's property. He called the police. They arrested him. They let him go. And then 11 days after that, he went and killed this guy. There was Independence Day 2024. Frank Maywald was a senior technical manager at JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, building NASA's next generation orbital surveillance instruments. He died at 61. No cause of death, no press release, no memorial, no obituary is the only proof that he ever existed. His obituary is the only proof he ever existed. Then there was Anthony Chavez, Los Alamos. His wallet, keys, cigarettes left on the table. He just disappeared. His car was in the driveway. His family saw him in April of last year. And then, you know, they kept trying to reach him. They finally drove down to Los Alamos. He was not there. Called the police. Police went inside and said, everything looks perfectly normal in here. He just poof, vanished. Then, of course, we have William McCaslin, Major General, that was in charge of the, I have them all listed in my article here. Let me jump back over here. So yeah, Grillmeier, renowned for his studies on the collisions of galaxies and the search for water on planets outside of our solar system. Frank Maywald, who died in Los Angeles on July 4th, 2024. Cause of death never revealed. Maywald worked as a technical group supervisor at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, where he worked on things like advanced remote sensing instruments, including microwave radiometers for Earth and planetary missions like Juno and Jason 3, visible shortwave infrared spectrometers for surface biology and geology, and miniaturized quadruple ion trap mass spectrometers for in situ analysis of planetary atmospheres. In other words, not all of these guys, but these guys were all dealing with propulsion and determining where there's viable life on this planet and other planets. And then, of course, William McCaskill. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, retired Major General William McCaskill, who's been missing since late February from his home in Albuquerque. Again, New Mexico seems to be the hotbed for all this. General McCaskill was an astronautical engineer working as the commander of the Air Force Research Labs from 2011 to 2013, where they studied advanced materials sciences, propulsion systems, and future weapons research. And then Representative Eric Burleson, who's also on the UAP committee, says this.
Keeping it a secret for so long. I don't know why they've been keeping it a secret for so long. There are a lot of these videos that they're keeping classified have been captured on technology that we don't want our adversaries to know that we have the ability to capture. So in other words, the cameras themselves are highly classified, and because of that, we don't want to release the footage. Now, that doesn't mean that Congress shouldn't be able to see this, which is why I've been, we have a lot of whistleblowers that have come forward. I've been given a list of about 2 to 3 dozen of these files and have submitted an official request to Tulsi Gabbard's office, to the Department of War, to, the Secretary of State and the Department of Energy to be able to see these files. And I've got a contact with other whistleblowers. There's more files to come. So when we've got people on the inside watching to see, based on our request, if these files have been moved, if they are deleted or changed in any way, to avoid that. So
pretty interesting. We've got people on the inside that are monitoring to make sure these files are not changed or deleted. So on one hand, you have Birthright, who's saying, release them all. The public needs to know. They'll come unglued, but they need to know. And then Burleson's kind of playing well, no, we need to keep this classified. We want to see it. We want everybody else, that has a clearance to see it, but we don't necessarily want this going out to the whole world, because then our adversaries know what's going on. Something's fishy with this, man.
Dude. You can go anywhere with this, and I think everybody's theory would be plausible, bro.
I know.
I saw someone in the chat. I wish I would have caught whose name it was, but they brought up, MH370. Had a bunch of Chinese scientists on there. Did we snatch up their scientists because Hillary Clinton was giving them our SAPs? You know what I mean? Is this what's going back? I mean, who knows? When Burchett comes out and says, that the world essentially is gonna lose their mind, what that tells me is we're not just talking about there's aliens. I don't think the world would lose its mind on just aliens right now. And because we've already been prepped for this with movies, comic books, all that stuff. Like, people would be like, oh, damn, they're really there. But it wouldn't shock it and create the chaos like he's talking about. Now, if aliens didn't have the ability to survive on our planet because of the way their makeup is, and so they had to crossbreed themselves with humans, and that information that Burchett's talking about is there's a race of people that aren't completely regular humans. And so then people are all like, well, how do I know? And you got to take blood tests. Well, then that gets into the conversation of, no, this was just a plan to get us all to submit our DNA. It's and that kind of stuff I could see creating chaos, which goes into what Matt Gaetz said on government projects of, hybrid humans and aliens. And we all think aliens, we're thinking like, the stuff we see from Independence Day, but aliens can just be DNA, non-human biologics that they found on something that all of a sudden they're combining with human DNA. So it's I don't know.
Any living organism. And just real quick, Grok, I fact checked this, the names, running the names, not, I didn't ask Grok for any opinions one way or the other, but there's one, Frank Mywald, Anthony Chavez, Monica Jacinto Reza, Nuno Lorero, MIT Plasma Science. Monica Jacinto was at the Jet Propulsion Lab as a contractor. Another one was at the LANL, the Los Alamos National Laboratory. Carl Grillmar, who we talk about, was Caltech astrophysicist. And then, of course, we have Melissa Casillas, the William Neil McCaskill, and a few others. Now, when Grok pushes back and saying, well, here's some key caveats, caveats. It says something like Grillmar's death involved an identified suspect with a criminal history. If you don't know an assassin when you see one, I mean, that guy was an assassin, right? You're on the property scouting him out. I mean, just minding your own business on land, and the guy's tracked on your property, and then he comes back 11 days later and kills you. That's, again, whether it's, MK Ultra type shit or whether he has a vendetta, I don't know, but something is going off here. Daily Mail, actually, I saw as my article was publishing, Daily Mail also has a piece on this as well that goes a little more in depth. So I'm going to have to read that after here, and maybe we'll continue that discussion as well. Final thoughts on that before we move on?
Man, I don't know. And the timing's interesting considering Artemis II.
Yeah.
Which we started off with. The timing's interesting, and I'm with people. Is it a distraction? I mean, it could be, or could it be disclosure? Could be. Like, I don't know when it comes to the aliens, man.
I'm with you, brother. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court hearing yesterday. But before we do that, let's get another word from our final sponsor before we take the show home here. And let's go ahead and pull this up. There we go, guys. Have you tried 1775 coffee yet? Now is your chance. The 1775 starter kit just dropped with only 1,000 units available. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because Freedom isn't scooped with plastic, a frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler, $170 worth of coffee and gear for just $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this story here. Axios, just to give a quick summary, President Trump is the first sitting president to attend a Supreme Court oral argument, as he attended on Wednesday. The vast majority of the countries, so this is over birthright citizenship. One of the arguments they made is that the vast majority of countries in the Americas, 27, grant automatic birthright citizenship. However, it's rare outside the Western Hemisphere. No European countries offer unconditional birthright citizenship, and only 6 countries outside the Americas do. And I should make clear, this is Axios making this argument, not General Sauer. Arguments yesterday centered on the meaning of the 5 words in the 14th Amendment, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The administration argued that those words require parents to be permanent and legal residents within the United States. Now, I've got a couple clips here that I want to play. This will be clip intensive, but this is the first one. I think this was during the opening statements.
Based on Chinese media reports, there are 500 birth tourism companies in the People's Republic of China whose business is to bring people here to give birth and return to that nation.
Having said all that, you do agree that that has no impact on the legal analysis before us?
I think it's, I'd quote what Justice Scalia said in his Hamdan dissent, where their interpretation has these implications that could not possibly have been approved by 19th century framers of this amendment. I think that shows that they've made a mess. Their interpretation has made a mess of the provision.
Well, it certainly wasn't a problem in the 19th century.
No, but of course, we're in a new world now, as Justice Alito pointed out, to where 8 billion people are one plane ride away from having a child who's a U.S. citizen.
Well, it's a new world. It's the same Constitution.
It is, and as Justice Scalia said, I think in the case that Justice Alito was referring to, you've got a constitutional provision that addresses certain evils, and it should be extended to reasonably comparable evils. He said that about statutory interpretation. I think the same principle applies here, and I think we quote that in our brief.
Thank you.
Okay, so that, I remember what that one was. That's going to be one of the more iconic moments, I think, from this trial right here, where Sauer is saying, when our founding fathers drafted the Constitution, it would take you months to cross the Atlantic or cross the Pacific to get to the United States. You wouldn't be crossing the Pacific because it didn't exist yet, but to cross the Atlantic, it would take you months to get here. And so birthright citizenship was not an adversarial threat, an immediate, imminent threat. Now you're a plane ride away. People from China can fly into the United States directly. They could fly into Mexico. They could fly into Canada, cross our border, come in here as complete illegal aliens, plop out a baby, and that baby is automatically granted citizenship. And the response there was kind of shocking to me. New world, same constitution. It is the same constitution. You also have to look at the context of how the constitution and specifically the amendments, because the 14th Amendment was in the 1860s, unconstitutional amendment, in my opinion. But and again, this goes back to what I've talked about with Chris Paul before about Thomas Jefferson saying a constitution should only survive about 19 years in a letter to James Madison. And you're seeing kind of an argument for that. But look at the same context they use with the Second Amendment. So take what he just said right there. New world, same constitution. Let's apply that to the Second Amendment now. New world, same constitution, right? So the implication on the Second Amendment now is that, well, our founding fathers couldn't forecast a machine gun. Okay, well, they couldn't have forecast airplanes either. They couldn't have forecast ships that could sail around the world in, a couple of weeks as opposed to a year. And so I what he just said right there, I think could have, some implications going well beyond just this birthright argument. I'll land that there. I'm getting rambly.
You actually brought up the point that I was going to make, because this is where I'm like, are we getting walked into a trap on this one?
Yes.
Because the argument that, New World, same constitution, that's the argument we make for the Second Amendment, right? The argument that, he's making on, well, yeah, but this wasn't anticipated, opens the door for what they've been trying to do. Well, when our forefathers did this, there wasn't fully automatic machine guns. There wasn't this, there wasn't that. And this is a dangerous one, man. This is a dangerous one. I have reservations with these conversations, but I also have reservations, with the, Internet Bill of Rights, now I say proceed with caution there as well.
I think this is probably the next more important one, I believe. Hold on, let me just check myself first. Yes, this is it. All right, and we need to play this one in full as well. This is going to be clip intensive the rest of the show here.
Sauer, that what you just said.
So this is Kagan pushing back and talking about the term domicile that comes up in this hearing a lot. I listened to the whole hearing. It was like 3 hours. Really long time for a Supreme Court hearing. Usually they're like an hour tops.
Suggests that you can't be arguing in the way Justice Alito suggests, because most of your brief is not about illegal aliens. Most of your brief is about people who are just temporarily in the country, where there was quite clearly an experience of, an understanding of, that there were going to be temporary inhabitants. And your whole theory of the case is built on that group. You don't get to talking about undocumented persons until quite later, and at much lesser, I think it's like 10 pages to 3 pages or something like that. So you can't really be going with Justice Alito's theory. You must be saying that there is a principle that developed, that was there in at the time of the 14th Amendment. Isn't that right?
We agree there's a principle there at the 14th Amendment. It is the jurisdiction means allegiance, the allegiance of and this is very strongly reflected in 19th century sources, the allegiance of an alien present in another country is determined by domicile. And that goes back to the Venus and the Pizarro. It goes through the Katza affair in 1853. It comes right up to Fong Yui Ting and Lau Ao Bu that are decided shortly before Wong Kim Ark. So that's the principle. That principle clearly applies here. I also respectfully disagree.
Yeah, and I guess, Mr. General Sauer, where does this principle come from? Allegiance, domicile, allegiance, I think you point to a Lincoln funeral speech as your primary example of where this principle comes from. It's certainly not what we think of when we think of the word jurisdiction, and I appreciate that jurisdiction has many meanings, but the first meaning is like if you're subject to jurisdiction, you're subject to the authority of. One doesn't say, oh, what that means is a certain kind of allegiance that domiciliaries have and nobody else does. So the text of the clause, I think, does not support you. I think you're sort of looking for some more technical, esoteric meaning. And then the question comes, okay, if the text doesn't support you, if there's a real history of people using it that way, but as far as I can tell, at the time of the 14th, you're using some pretty obscure sources to get to this concept.
Well, take it straight from the framers' mouths. So, for example, Senator Trumbull was asked, what does jurisdiction mean? He means subject to the jurisdiction. He said, what does that mean? He says it means not owing allegiance to anybody else. He is the principal framer of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Representative Bigham, who's the framer of the 14th Amendment, is asked, what does it mean in the congressional record at page 1291? He says, within the jurisdiction of the United States of parents not owing allegiance to any foreign sovereignty. And we've cited many, many examples where the congressional debates reflect that. Then you referred to the oration of George Bancroft. That's one of probably 16 sources, but there's at least 13, counting that one in the 12 treatises we cited, pages 26 to 28 of our brief. There is over a dozen sources that specifically address temporary sojourners in the 5 decades after the enactment of the amendment. Every single one of them says, well, temporary sojourners, their children are not included, including for 2 decades after Wong Kim Ark.
So that's the one key right there that I think is going to do it, because this did not go well for Sauer overall. I mean, the way the justices, kind of talked, it did not feel like it went well for him. But what he just said right there,
and not by any error of him, it's just these people hate our fucking country.
Exactly. I agree. He argued that very, very well. And I'll show you the one key word that is just everybody's kind of missing on. But General Sauer right there is saying that they, even back when the 14th Amendment, before and after Wong Kim Ark, it was temporary sojourners, meaning people that are here temporarily, illegally, whatever the case might be. Their kids are not included in this. But let me play one more clip. Again, this is very long. This is going to be clip intensive. I'll let you weigh in on that one first if you want, because this next one's pretty long.
I think we covered it good. And I think that part where you're talking about with, even with the temporary soldiers, they're not kids. I think that's the on this. Yeah. One.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. So here is Kagan and Sauer going at it some more.
Domicile was not relevant.
Oh, no, sorry. This is Wang arguing for the ACLU. Excuse me.
And the children born to temporary visitors in the territory of the sovereign were always considered birthright citizens.
Well, Ms. Wang.
Okay, let me just show you one thing real quick. Let me play that again.
Domicile was not relevant, and the children born to temporary visitors in the territory of the sovereign were always considered birthright citizens.
Well, Ms. Wang,
okay, that is not true. And Kim Wong Ark, the article they're the case they're talking about, 1897 United States versus Wong Kim Ark, permanent domicile residence was considered in that opinion. Permanent. So going back to what Sauer just said to Justice Kagan about temporary sojourners, it was explicitly permanent domicile, meaning green card holders, people that had visas to permanently be in this country. Okay, on that note, let's jump back in.
I mean, everything you say strikes me as, that's the way I read it too. But then what are those 20 domicile words doing there? Like, you can, take some of them and say, they were just summarizing the facts of the case, but not all of them. And why did they keep on, why did they sprinkle that in the opinion?
Well, I think, again, those were the stipulated facts in the case. And it's clear we have textual evidence in the majority opinion that they were simply saying this is an a fortiori application of that controlling rule that comes from the English common law. Justice Gray writes, again, after setting out the English common law rule and the exceptions, with the single additional exception for children of members of Indian tribes, that the amendment in clear words and manifest intent includes the children born within the territory of the United States of all other persons of whatever race or color domiciled within the United States. And as was pointed out earlier, the very next part of that same paragraph, he cites to Webster talking about Thrasher's case. And he says, people who are born in this country owe allegiance independently of a residence within, foreign nationals owe allegiance independently of a residence with intention to continue such residence, independently of any domiciliation, and independently of taking any oath of allegiance, which is totally contrary to both the government's theory of dual allegiance or partial allegiance and to the theory of domiciliation.
I mean, I might agree with you if domicile had simply been sprinkled in the opinion. But in Wong Kim Ark, it's a long opinion, but it begins by saying, here's the question, and it ends by coming back to the question. And it says, here's the question stated at the beginning of the opinion, namely whether a child born in the United States or parents of Chinese descent who at the time of his birth are subjects of the Emperor of China, but have a permanent domicile and residence in the United States and are there carrying on business. And he states the diplomatic exception. And he says, for the reasons above stated, this court is of the opinion that the question must be answered in the affirmative. So why put domicile in? Sometimes it's hard to figure out what is the holding of the case. Here he tells us this is the holding of the case. Why put domicile in there?
Okay, so just real quick. I think that they're missing that key word of permanent domicile. So Justice Alito is saying, yes, they don't mention, they don't mention domicile in there because it's explicitly clear in the opinion that domicile is, one of the main causes. Permanent domicile needs to be there. The word permanent. And that was just, I think, again, I don't want to think for a second that I'm smarter than any of these justices, maybe KBJ, but
tell me what a woman is.
Exactly. I can tell you exactly what a woman is. I got one by my side 9/10 of the time that I'm alive. And she's not here right now. But anyways, let's keep going.
It's just something, it's something irrelevant that he wanted to throw in. It's like, whether a child born in the United States of parents of Chinese descent who once resided at a particular address in San Francisco, who attempted to enter the country at the port of San Francisco. Why put it in if it's irrelevant?
Well, Justice Alito, I'll give you two responses. The first is that, again, it was a stipulated fact. The second is that regardless of what the judgment in the case was, which again was an a fortiori application of the rule of decision, the rule of decision in Wong Kim Ark has binding precedential effect. Even if you think that Wong Kim Ark decided the case based on the stipulated facts, you have to follow that controlling rule of decision. And if you follow that rule, you get to the same result for people without domicile. Wong Kim Ark says 6 times in the first parts of the opinion, as well as on the page the government focuses on, that domicile is not relevant.
Well, on that, what do we do with the fact that after Wong Kim Ark, at least some authorities took the view that the non-domiciliary question wasn't decided, remained open, and even continued to press the view that domicile is required? Now, I know you've got a lot of good stuff on your side too, but what do we do with the fact that many sound legal authorities thought it remained an open question, even if one of them wasn't John Marshall Harlan?
I liked your example from Justice Harlan's lecture here in DC. So here's what I would say. All of the government's citations in their brief generally either were rejected by Wong Kim Ark expressly if they predated Wong Kim Ark.
If we're trying to understand how the legal community understood what happened in Wong Kim Ark, It seems to me it's a mess. So maybe you can persuade me otherwise.
I think I can, Justice Gorsuch. First, as to the post-Wong Kim Ark authorities the government cites, each one of them is inconsistent with Wong Kim Ark's reasoning or doesn't mention it at all. Most of them have very little reasoning at all. And in contrast, what we have on our side post-Wong Kim Ark is numerous federal court decisions around the time of Wong Kim Ark, between ratification and Wong Kim Ark, that said that domicile is not relevant. They cited Lynch versus Clark, which again was about the daughter of temporary sojourners. We have the 6th edition of Kent.
Okay, so we can land it there. So she's saying that the domicile part is not relevant. It's clearly relevant, and it has to be permanent domicile. These people, I do broadly agree. These people hate our country. The ACLU literally makes their money off of, that perpetuation of birthright citizenship.
It's their customer base.
Yeah, it's insane to think, in the way that it was argued. And again, General Sauer did a good job. I think Alito, Thomas, and perhaps Gorsuch are leaning that way. I think Kavanaugh, perhaps Barrett and Roberts, obviously, are kind of not. Kagan actually was relatively fair in pressing on Sauer and pressing on Wang.
Shouldn't be any women on the Supreme Court. I said it.
What is a woman?
Just saying.
Yeah, the whole birthright citizenship, man. The idea that the way that they put it out there, the idea that somebody can come over here, have parents that are completely illegal in this country, have no allegiance to our country whatsoever, but what pops out of them because it was born on this soil is automatically going to be allegiant to there's no allegiance to our country based on their parents, right? The same argument we make about parents having the ultimate say over whether or not their children can participate in certain things, no transgender for kids, right? That should be uniform because it's literally violating the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm, because you're removing parts. But moving beyond that, there's other things like the pronouns and stuff, right? And the argument is that should be up to the parents, not the teachers. Well, the allegiance that this kid is going to have should be determined by the parents, not by the kids. These kids are not able to form their own, relevant and intelligent thoughts until they reach a certain age. So in the meantime, they're most influenced by their illegal parents that have zero allegiance to this country. And, just for our own safety, it should not be permitted. And they talked earlier about the Chinese birthing tourism. I mean, this is a real thing, guys. There are billionaires in China that never even step foot in the United States that are paying surrogates to take artificial insemination and pop out their own kids here in the United States. This is a fundamental problem here in this country.
I gotta find the article, but there's a piece of land that is considered American territory out in it's by China and Taiwan and all that. But there are Chinese that live there. There's actually, I think, close to 1 million that were born
American
there.
Samoas.
What's that?
The American Samoas. That's way over there. We have some other land.
I'll find it. I'll get it to you to read. This actually be a good one for you to investigate and report on. But you have over 1 million Chinese that were born there that are kids right now they're considered American citizens. That's 1 million votes. Imagine them all going to the same area that you can shift an entire election.
Oh yeah.
So here, let me see if I can find it for you. And I want to say I saw it probably about a month ago, and I was just like, what the hell? Hell no. So even things like that need to be redefined and removed. Let me see.
The Marianas. Marine in the Woods says the Marianas.
It could be. I'm going to look it up real quick.
American Samoas is northeast of Australia. So it's in the Pacific out there, but not sure. All right, let's go ahead and while you're looking that up, let's hit one more sponsor and then we will get into rants and wrap up. All right, parents. Real talk for a second. America's about to hit a huge milestone. We're coming up on America's 250th birthday, 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in the self-government the world has ever seen. This is the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters, not just fireworks and hot dogs, but the story behind it all. There's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday, and it's honestly a great way to introduce kids to how America began, who the founding fathers were, what they risked, and why the ideas they fought for still matter today. This guide sends kids back to the moment when brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well that they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way kids can actually understand and enjoy without watering it down or turning into boring schoolwork. If you care about raising kids who know how this country, where it came from, and why it's worth preserving. This is something you'll want to grab. And the best part, it's completely free with this special offer. You just need to pay $2 for shipping and handling. Just head to freeusabirthday.com. Again, freeusabirthday.com. And the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday is yours for your kids today. America's story matters. Make sure that the next generation knows that. All right. I just looked at the time and we got to get into rants and get out of here.
All right. So just real quick, the Mariana Islands is going to be one of them because it's Saipan.
Yeah.
And it's these are crazy numbers coming out of there on people that they're Chinese. And
but they're born on American soil.
So they're considered American citizens. That is insane.
That's
and
crazy.
that it ties into what you're talking about with the Birthright tourism.
Yeah. All right. So Rebel Nader, now a monthly supporter. I feel like that's like maybe just re-upping because I feel like Rebel Nader has been a supporter. But thank you. That's a great way to support us, by the way, guys. $5 a month. And it helps ensure that that we get to eat. Vera Barrow 1 just wanted to send love and prayers to everyone in the chat today. Thank you so much. And God bless you. Prayers for you as well as love. Sal Bish. Rise Attire t-shirt idea pitch, quote, if I'm retarded, I want Alpha to be the one to deliver the news properly. Damn. Taking shots at you, bro.
Hey, listen, people cannot like my position. To comment to that, somebody in the chat said, so police would interview a retarded person? Yes, we would.
Yeah. Huck Fillery dropping by to drop a couple pledged Huck bucks. I'm finding it hard to catch dailies live. Can Alpha Reed say maniacal interrogation methods are mutant casual conversations?
Maniacal interrogation methods are mutant casual conversations.
Yep. Nailed it. Thank you, Huck Fillery. Big Gouda. Get a room, fellas. Alpha and I, we got a lot of love. Is no homo if it's in camis, right?
I prefer voyeurism.
Misfit 556. We know they use film for predictive programming. Top Gun, Maverick. Coincidence that there's movies coming out called Disclosure Day. No such thing as coincidences, dude. Everything we're seeing right now, the narratives, Hollywood's ahead of it. Paradise, Greenland. What was the one where they go underground and do the things? What was the one where they go underground and it was on Apple TV. It was a Severance, another one. I mean, there's all sorts of TV shows out right now that are very much in line with what we perceive is going to happen. But that also is part of the PSYOP, right? They piggyback off of Hollywood in certain cases. Anyways, all right, we'll land that there. We got to get out of here in a hurry. Alpha, we'll see everybody tonight. Thank you for joining me as always, brother.
Quick question on the way out. You remember the movie The Truman Show?
Yep.
If you found out there was a door to exit the stage, would you walk out?
Fuck no. From where we're at, it's like Matrix, blue pill or red pill. If you knew, yeah, you know what? I think I would, just because I would want to see what is on the other side. I would want to be able to take that bird's eye perspective. We'll talk about that tonight as well. We got a lot. Tune in, sit rep, 9 p.m. Eastern. Daily Herald coming up here in less than an hour. John's probably going to kill me, but it is what it is. Badlandsmedia.tv/events. Get your GART tickets, virtual and in person. There is a live stream today, the fourth and final live stream at 2 p.m. We'll see you there.
Patriots, the fight for truth doesn't stop at the screen. It's hitting the road again. Badlands Media is rolling into Nashville on April 9th through 12th for the next stop on the Great American Restoration Tour. Join your favorite Badlands hosts and like-minded Americans for 3 powerful days. Packed with unfiltered discussions, deep dive panels, and real debate. Hear the raw truth, ask the tough questions. No topic too hot, no question too bold. GART is where our community comes alive. Tickets are on sale now at badlandsmedia.tv/GART, where you can also grab a virtual pass and watch from home. Join us to question narratives and fight for America's future. Nashville's calling. The restoration continues. Get your passes today. See you in Music City.